everybody, my name is Mapule M and this is Edify. I'm excited today because I have a guest by the name of Jacob Baloyi and he's from Seeker's Promise. So he's the director of that company. So Jake, please introduce yourself to our viewers at home.
My name is Jake Baloyi. I am the director of Seeker's Promise. It's a non-profit that is Christian-based, but mainly that focuses on your organizational development side of churches. That's the essence of it. This stems from, or rather, the organization was actually established as a result of the need that I saw within Christian churches. For the longest of time, I've been having a desire to see a church operate in a certain manner. And in the few early years of going into ministry, I had an opportunity of going to a college that had a church that ran in a way that resembled something that I aspired to. Then as a result, I've been having this thing, the seed was planted in me to sort of help churches function better. And, by God's grace, in my journey of being in ministry, I got exposed to a whole lot of things. I got exposed to working in government. I got exposed to working in the corporate sector. I got exposed to being an entrepreneur. And as a result, those side of a tangent journeys fortified my resolve to really say, you know what, if people who are money driven or profit driven could be so diligent about doing things right and achieving, what is that saying about the church? Because we have a much more bigger mandate, the soul of man. And yet when you go within our churches, there are a lot of things that are not going right. And
okay, the minister is going on and on, right? So everybody at home, this is the book, Building the Church Brick by Brick. What is the purpose of writing this book? Did you see a lot of problems in the Christian community? Why did you write it?
You'll be so shocked. What happened is after graduating, way before I graduated, I became a pastor, sort of by default. Okay. It's a long story. But then I became a pastor, and for the first 7 years of pastoring, I had something that was not okay. I had a desire to do something else, in a sense that I knew that I was called, but I realized that actually my passion is not mainly to take care of the church, but is to ensure that the church run efficiently and the church achieve certain desired outcome. And as a result, what I did, I left the church with my assistant pastor. Then I said, stay with the church, and I decided to go and submit somewhere, purely because I wanted to grow in this thing.
But before you continue, when it comes to ministry, like when you leave that church, how did the congregation feel about that?
No, it's never an easy thing. Come to think of it, it's never an easy thing, but it's something that I felt strong about, and I could not do anything about it. I just felt like, this is the right thing to do. And, bear in mind, to become a celebrity every Sunday can be very addictive.
Okay.
Where you have to preach every Sunday, always you are the main man. But you leave the church, you go to another church, somebody's speaking and you are listening. Every Sunday, he's preaching when you are listening. The result of the journey that I took with the church, that I started really gathering material around this, and the church was very instrumental also in that some of the partnership they had, right, gave me exposure to some of the things that I felt that they were necessary. I got introduced to organizations like Willow Creek. I got introduced to organizations like Rick Warren's organizations, and for me, they sort of refined or filtered the purpose, and that's where actually, if I were to trace where the book was started, that's where the book started.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but are you the type of minister that went out to seek strategies, ways to develop the church? Because from what I've been hearing from your explanation, it's beyond just standing there and teaching the word of God. There's administration in what is done in the church. So in your book, there's specifically on chapter 1, you speak of developing working strategies for growth. Can you please just expatiate on that?
I've noticed one thing. It's a matter of, when I look at church, maybe it's because of the calling I have. When I look at church, I look at church differently.
Okay.
I don't look at it at Sunday to Sunday. And I think in my years of being a novice in the ministry, I've sort of went too far sometimes in expressing myself because of the inner convictions I have about the issue. But for me, I think in the words of one of the greatest preachers, I would say, I don't think there's anything that goes to waste. Therefore, it's not about sorting strategies. It's about allowing creativity and allowing the giftings that exist in and outside of the church to help the vision of the church grow way above what an individual can do. What currently happening is that there's a very myopic view of how the church should be, and that myopic view of the church has sort of stifled the church from being the church of Christ that Christ talked about. And the book, my premise is on that verse in Matthew that says, "Upon this church I'll build my church. Upon this rock I'll build my church, and no gates of hell shall prevail upon it." And as a result, it's on that basis that my view about church it's that of, in the words of Bill Hybels, when he says, the church becomes the most crucial component that exists in every community on each and every Sunday. And as a result, it's on that premise that I view Kerek. Therefore, for me, that's how I look at it. I don't know if I answer the question directly on the issue of strategies, but for me, that's how I look at it. I don't want to separate, this is a business strategy for a business. This is a business a strategy for Kereke. Strategy. I mean, it has nothing to do with Kereke. There are certain things that are inherently part of any existing organization, regardless of it being church or it being a political party or it being anything. They're just inherently there. Therefore, as a result, Kereke has sort of divorced itself from certain things and looked at it as a spiritual entity. Then that's it. And over and above that, we have never exploited the potential of the church because of exactly what you are alluding to on chapter 1.
One of my favorite chapters when I read in the book, was chapter 12, where you say that people must always matter. That resonates so much with my spirit, because when I think of the church, I don't think of the buildings, the screens. I think of the people. And what do you mean in your book when you speak of people mattering when it comes to ministry?
You can be lost as a pastor. You can be lost into the business and the hustle and bustle of running a church as organization that you forget the reason why it exists in the first place. I mean, Christ, when he stood in the synagogue in the Gospel of Luke, he reads from Isaiah, the scroll, and he says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and he's anointed me to heal the sick, to the brokenhearted," and he concludes by saying, "and to preach the acceptable year of the Lord." And after he says, so he closed the scroll and says, "This is being fulfilled in front of you today." And I think that's the manifesto of the church, because of if you forget that, then you run just an organization. At the end of the day, you end up having such a beautiful building, such a beautiful everything, but you are not achieving the very essence of why you exist in the first place. People are the reason why Christ came. People are the reason why a church is there.
So
it doesn't exist for me to have a big church for my ego. It doesn't exist for me to have a big title because of I'm a pastor or I'm important. It doesn't exist for that. Everything in terms of the church, it's on the premise of people mattering to God. Hence why you find that we'll go on a limb and try and get that and that and that, because of it's all about reaching that soul in whatever way. A soul that is sophisticated, get the most sophisticated way to get the soul. A soul that is simple, be as simple that you can to get that soul. However it takes, and I mean, look at the ministry of Christ. The ministry of Christ in the gospel for me, it's a classic example. I mean, you look at the combination of the 12 disciples. You have fishermen, you have a tax collector, you have a doctor, you have, I mean...
But you're managing all of them because you have the wisdom that is sufficient to do that, right?
Exactly.
Because catering to different types of mindsets can be very challenging, as we all know. So I like that the fact that you emphasize on that, because those are the types of people that followed him, because he wanted everybody.
Yes.
So I think when you look at all the 12 disciples, then you can just see yourself in one of them.
Yes,
you know,
I mean, some you could relate with one of them. Some of them, Matthew, for instance, I mean, another different character from a lot.
Okay.
You know, and as a result, you could relate with one of them. Therefore, this is why I'm saying people matter, because of Christ came for people. And if you lose that, you can have a powerful service, you can have big conferences, you can have that and that and that and that. But at the end of the day, the Bible says that it will be on the basis of that outcome. That you are proven to be, say, well done and good and faithful servant. It's not on the basis of, did I have a powerful conference?
No.
Did I have a big international ministry? It's about did you impart? Did you change lives?
Yes.
And for me, hence why the chapter.
Okay. And then on chapter 8, you speak about developing the culture of excellency. And I think that's very important, because the definition of excellency says that the quality of being outstanding, right? Of extremely good things, right? So when it comes to the church, how can you just elaborate for us in terms of what you meant in that chapter?
No, not that get my blood boiling, because of for the longest of time, doing good and doing right has been clothed with rags.
Right.
You know, it's like if you if you epitomize something good, something right, something perfect, something moral, you have to look shabby, you have to look humility in the view of everyone, most people. It is be as shabby as possible, be as mediocre as possible, be as clumsy as possible, then you know that you are humble. And that's not true. You know, why I talk about excellence? I talk about excellence because of, if we take God for who God is, and we go back in scripture, right from the kingdom of David, when he was building the temple, you could see the amount of detail. I mean, the Bible talks about in terms
even
of
Enoch,
measurements.
right?
Yes.
With the boat and everything.
Yes,
there was
Noah.
precision
From
and
Noah,
yes, Noah.
You could see that, you know, there are certain things that are taken into account. It was not like you're building a forum in a village where you have to use your foot and say, no, I'm going to build from here to there, then so bedroom, from there to there. No, it was not like an afterthought or as I go along kind of a thing. It was something that was detailed. Even when God talked to Moses about building an Ark of the Covenant, it was detailed, the kind of material. It was not like, let's get anything we can get. No, I mean, certain stones, certain minerals were mentioned. And as a result, we cannot deviate from that and say, no, because of it's a God thing, then it had to. And unfortunately, there's that kind of belief, and it's a wrong belief, and that's what I'm trying to nullify on the chapter, to say you have to treat church as serious as you treat something that you like, as such as your car. You know, if you buy the most expensive car, you don't take it to any car wash. If you buy the most expensive house, you don't call any other handyman. You know, if you think this is valuable, you make provisions to ensure that it gets maintained and it gets catered for in a way that suits its standard. And I believe that it's an indictment on us as the children of God to resemble the character of God. Even when the Bible talks about heaven, it doesn't talk about heaven as some slump in some area that is full of distress and things that are not right. It talks about heaven as a perfect place. And as a result, there's nothing that prevents us to aspire to do the best we can. I mean, it's a love relationship. The church is the bride, and Christ is the groom. And I really believe that if you are in a marriage or in a relationship with somebody that you care about, You cannot go and say, okay, I'll go to a pawn shop to buy a gift.
Right.
If you can afford to get the best that you can, you go to the most expensive place to get the best that you can, because of that's the expression, and excellence is an expression.
Regarding the subject of excellency as well, ne? Because I feel like as the leader of the church, you are mostly responsible for urging or evoking that spirit out. Let's just be excellent in whatever that we do. So does that have a lot of pressure? Like, it puts a lot of pressure on the ministers to actually be echoing the fact that people need to be excellent in whatever service that they do? Because with ministry, one thing that I've seen is that in the beginning, you take everybody, but every ministry has stages. And now, how do you stop and say, hey, you've been singing for 20 years. I think it's time to stop, because now the church is at this point in the ministry, because that's just a practical example. But how would you tackle a situation like that?
You know what? I really believe that at different levels, you require different skills and so on. And if first of all, let me just say, excellence is something that you should be able to say, you know what, this is what I aspire to have.
Right.
Yeah. If you don't aspire to have it,
who, as the minister,
as a minister,
okay,
even as a believer,
first.
even as a believer, and understand that it is not a nice to have thing. It's something. It's an expression of gratitude and worship to God. And if David, for instance, David buys a piece of land, and the person is buying a piece of land from, he's offering it for free. And David says, no, I cannot give to God what it did not cost me anything. It has to cost me something.
Right.
That's how serious he was in terms of experiencing excellence to God. I mean, if you can read his psalms, his psalms are just a work of art.
Right.
But coming back to your question, it has to be something that it's a value that you have to hold dear. If you don't hold it dear, you can tell. You walk around the township, you can tell people who hold the value of excellence and those who don't. And if you hold it dear, it will cascade from you as a leader right through to your lay leaders, right through to your workers, right through to the congregation. But it's something that you have to believe in. It's something that you have to value for it to start bearing fruit. But if you don't value it, if you don't have it as something that you believe is a pillar for your ministry, you are going to look at the TV and see certain churches doing very well and wonder, why don't I have that? It's because of you don't value it. Somebody has it because of he values it. A guy who builds a double-story house for the same salary as you, so he values something about getting a double-story house. And now you are not getting a double-story house.
Yeah, no, you're right about that.
It's about something that intrinsic. You have to have it as an intrinsic issue, a conviction to say, you know what, for the God that I serve, I'm not going to take shortcuts. This is what I do. Yeah, for now, what I have is 200 rand. I'll use that. But as I grow, I'll increase in my level of doing excellence. If it means changing the team, getting a better team, unfortunately, that's a natural growth process of any organization. And it comes, it's inevitable. You, at a certain level, you're going to need certain expertise. And so it's in the issue of excellence. You're going to need certain expertise because of your...
I'm drawn to the subject of the book because it says building the church brick by brick. Can one actually say that as soon as they're done reading your book, things are bound to change? Ne? Because there's this chapter where you speak about leveraging the vision. What do you mean?
Now that I think that was supposed to be the first thing when you say bring the church brick by brick.
Yeah.
But going to the topic is mainly to... It comes from my frustration as a lay pastor.
Right.
Every book that I got on church growth and church admin and church, anything about church as organization, was written from either America or somewhere in Europe. And as a result, it much as had good things, but some of them I had to adapt them to my environment,
Right.
and some of them I could not relate. As a result, I had that. I did not have a book that was written by a church that I saw locally, and with lessons and practical things that I could learn, that I could say, I think I can do that. I think I can do that. I think I can do that.
Do you think that's a reason why in the old church there were scribes and people that document every step of the ministry? Because that's very important, even with what's happening today, right?
No, it is.
So how do we leverage, how do we basically take those methods and put them in today's church?
Yeah, I think on the book, let me just maybe conclude my point on the title.
Yeah.
On the title, I wanted to cover something to the effect that if I'm starting in ministry, I need something that could sort of give me a guideline. I written it as a handbook. Where do I start? Where do I go? What is it that I can know? What is it that who can I talk to? What are pointers so that I don't have to learn by mistakes and so on? I mean, I address issues as simple as church registrations, policies, because of constitutions and all those things. I address them because of I try to cover as much as I could as far as the church life cycle as organization. I can. Coming to your question on leveraging the vision, I'm on the leveraging the vision. It's mainly the issue of saying that we cannot have doctors, nurses, and all people from different walks of life with expertise and experiences sitting on pews every Sunday, coming to church, clapping, giving the money, then going home. For me, I think it's a waste of knowledge capital. I think it's a waste of resource. So I believe that when you come to me as a pastor, you pray for a promotion. Your promotion is not only for you to feed your family, but the promotion also is to give you expertise and skills that you can plow back.
Okay, so you urge
then that the church becomes a melting pot of expertise and skills that when harnessed, they could affect positively the community and take the vision of the church much, much, much further. But what has happened most of the time, we don't see that. People come to church, they pack all they know, their PhDs, their director titles, their expertise in finance, in what, they pack them at the gate. They come to church with their darling hearts. Then after that, they clap, then they take out their offering, then they go. And we have this asset in every community that could transform that community in many ways. You could do many things. Therefore, if I talk about leveraging, it's when we tap into that knowledge capital. We tap into that human resource and say, as a church, how can we use your expertise as a teacher? Your expertise as so. Use it as ministry to somebody else.
But I've seen that happening because I think at this 21st century church, you see seminars, conferences taking place in the church, right? So I think there's an improvement in that particular area, right? But lastly, in chapter 20, you speak of transformation when you conclude the book, right? And you speak of how catching the fish is so important in the 21st century because we are bombarded with information. You know, if I feel like you as my minister are not catering to my needs, I can just go to Google and search for a certain subject. There'll definitely be somebody speaking about that particular subject, right? So how elaborate a bit more in the book. What do you mean when you speak of transformation?
When I talk about transformation, I simply talk about agility. To say, not only that we should be anticipative and we should be adaptive, but we should also be agile. Agile in the sense that when you, and I use two commodities, two examples that were economic commodities of the time during the times of Jesus. I use fishing and I use also agriculture. The Bible talks about the harvest, and the Bible talks about also I'll make you fishers of men. I use them, and I use them also in context of trying to elaborate on the subject, trying to say, there were times where certain things used to work, and you should be adaptive enough or agile enough to understand that they're no longer possible.
Right.
And I give an example. Even when I talk with my friends, I always say there were times where you could have a 3 weeks tent crusade in a certain area, in a township or in an area, and people will come in numbers, and there's no problem.
Right.
Those years are no longer there. I mean, times have changed. Then the dynamics in our communities were different. The family dynamics were different. Most mothers did not work. Number one. Number two, you had no entertainment in the area.
Less events.
Yes, less events. Number three, you had no cable network in terms of your DSTVs. Number four, you didn't have cell phones and all those things. Now you have competing interests. Now, if you have competing interests, you have all these things that competing for the same attention.
Right.
The question is, as a church, how do you become agile to still be relevant and catch the same fish or have the same harvest, and without having to actually lose your relevance? If you continue and say, okay, fine, I know Reverend Bengu or Reverend all these powerful men of God that we know had a crusade, and I'm just going to do cut and paste and do it for 3 weeks, you'd realize that unless it was a divine sanctioned, anointed, God said kind of a thing, you're more likely to have a good time getting a good harvest, because of you have serious competing interests. And now I'm saying to the church, you should be agile and read the times. I mean, you read the times. If something does not work, you don't have to go and pray about it. We pray about things that are much of a common sense, and that's what I'm talking about there, to say some things are just out there. They don't need a revelation. This doesn't work, and if it doesn't work, you just change it. But we sort of have this loyalty to unproductive practices because of somehow they're part of our history, and that's what I'm trying to distill, to say no. It's good, but it's no longer relevant. And since it's not relevant, and also the audience changed, by the way.
That's true.
The audience changed. You have an audience that was up to grade 8 or grade 10 20 years ago. Now you have an audience that is way above that is more exposed to other things, that has access to a whole lot of stuff. Therefore, how you become relevant, how you become effective and efficient.
And I was about to ask you as well, in terms of just the book, right? Who's the target market for this? Is this just for ministers, or can I just buy the book and learn and take those methods or strategies that I get in here and suggest in my local church?
I've written it mainly for primarily anybody who has a passion to serve in the church, right from a pastor to a lay worker.
Right.
To a pastor, it's something that says, what is that I can learn that I could apply where I am, whether I'm starting, whether I'm growing, whether I'm thriving, I'm a big church. There could be something that you could pick up, that you think, I think that tact, if I can use it, it does open my eyes in this area. So I touch a whole lot of areas in the book. I don't just talk about one thing. I talk about a whole lot of areas. And to workers, it's just something that could give you exposure to say, oh, okay, this is relatively how a church should operate.
And it could also make us to be proactive.
Yes, now
instead of just sitting there and saying, no, they don't need my services, I could just go and
yes, like on the book I talk about.
This is what I do.
Ushers. I say, you're an usher. You cannot have an usher that simply says, sit here, don't sit here, sit here. You could be an usher but take statistics on Sunday. You count how many people are seated, how many people are, you take statistics. Then every Sunday you have stats in terms of how many people are there. And you monitor your growth, because of if you don't have numbers, you wake up one day in a 500-seater church, you have 1,000 people. You wonder, how did you get there? And all of a sudden now you have to build very fast. But now you are not proactive because there were resources in the church, but you never used them proactively to ascend, to say, I think we're having more visitors, I think we're having more people coming to Christ. Therefore, if these numbers are something to go by, then we should start planning expansion. And even, or the opposite also, if you have people not coming to church,
right,
you say, where are we missing the mark? Now, you cannot have a prayer meeting that prays about something else, whereas the reality is something else. That informs other programs, because if you have a problem of people not coming to church, you don't know what the problem is. Your prayer meetings and other programs now start having relevant application to your current challenges or your current developments. Therefore, for me, it's just a holistic issue in my view. That is what I'm saying. Regardless of whether you're a counselor, you're an usher, you are a whatever. Whatever role that you play, you could read it, and at least you could learn a thing or two and say, how best can I be of an asset to where I am.
Okay, no, thank you very much for the time that we've had to review this amazing book. I cannot help but, after reading this book, one thing that I just wanted to say is that my favorite chapter, like I said, people must always matter. So that's very important. Go and get the book. Muruti, any words that you'd like to say? Where do they get this book? Which number do you want them to call?
I think the number will be on the screen.
Right.
And but we are having the book in rather, let me just say, check all major bookstores. Will make the book available on all major bookstores, and also even on the number or on our website, or also on our email that will be on the screen. They can be able to place orders and so on. But furthermore, if you have a need for intervention, you want something dealt with in your church, you feel like you have a lack here, we are there to give you an extra hand. If you say we don't have our policies right, how do we do them? We don't have our systems right, how do you help us have proper structures? How do you help us design proper systems? Therefore, we come and assist and help you do that. We deal with
facilitate, coach, do all those things, right?
We consult, and we do it one-on-one with pastors. We do it with teams, and we do it also with the church. Some churches are facing transition. Some churches have hit a plateau. We always grow. 250, you're stuck. You don't grow beyond that.
Okay.
And you don't know what's wrong. Therefore, we cover such issues.
Okay, so he's from Seeker's Promise. Make sure that you contact the number on the screen and go to the website. I think they'll be able to assist you. And from us, Edify, every encounter is substantial. I hope that you've learned everything that you needed to hear, and we love you. God bless. Goodbye.